Have you ever been in a situation where you need a new lens, but you don't really know what you actually need? Don't worry, I'm going to help you with this video. I'm going to tell you the question you should ask yourself before buying a new lens. Stick around to find out what those questions are. Hi there, Peter Forsgård, an Olympus visionary from Helsinki, Finland. Let's get to the point right away. But first I have to address with one thing. Usually when you want to buy a new lens is that you want to get better, you want to be a better photographer, maybe you want some better image quality. But remember that the image quality, the technical quality is only one part of photography. The most important thing is the thing that you have in your head. Your mind is the true lens of your camera. So remember that if you want to get better at photography, by buying a new lens is not most likely the best way to go. There is a video about motivation that I made a few weeks ago, so go check out that. Yeah, I wanted to come outside because it's a nice weather. We have spring here and it's nice small woods that it's quite close to my house where I live. And the place where I am at is a place where they built bunkers. This is actually built for the First World War. And this is a pretty exciting place. As you can see, there's not much left of it. But as you can see, there is still some stuff. And there you can see let's zoom in a bit and you can see the constructions here. And there's a big highway right behind that. But let's continue today's subject. Most of you probably have started with the kit lens. That's what I started with when I bought my first SLR. It was a 50mm at that time. But nowadays the kit lens is usually a zoom lens from 12 to 40mm or 14 to 42. It depends on a little bit of the brand you have and which lens you want to get. But that's usually a small zoom that has a wide angle and a telephoto and then the standard lens. But there might be some limitations with the kit lens, you might think, and that's true. Most kit lenses are not very fast, so you might want to have a faster aperture or something like that, or better weather sealing, or whatever that reason is that you want to get a new lens, or you just want to, buy something because you feel good about it. I don't know if that's a good reason, but hey, we have all different reasons and no reasons are really bad. And the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is the thing that you like to photograph the most? Well, how do I find out what do I like to shoot most? Of course, you have your preferences. When did you feel good when you were making images, or what images are your favorites, what images you are proud of? And then, of course, if you can really not figure this out, then the best way is to go to your image catalog and start looking at the images, what you really like to do. And of course, there might be some cases that you remember when taking one image that there was something that you would have wanted to take, but you didn't have the right kind of gear for that. Then that could be the starting point to consider a new lens and what lens it might be. But let's start with the most popular subjects. First is nature and the second one is travel. I don't know if I'm correct. What are your thoughts? Please tell me in the comments down below. Nature photography and travel photography can be divided into three different sub-genres, or even more, but let's say that there are three different ones. Nature photography, you have landscapes, fauna and fauna. And in travel you got the regular everyday memories. Then you have street photography, and then you have cityscapes, and of course landscapes could be on a travel photography too. For me it's usually cityscapes because I like to travel in big cities, not that much on the countryside. All these different genres require a bit of a different approach. Let's say that you are doing landscapes, then usually you might want to need a wide angle lens. And then let's say that you're doing the animals, the fauna, then usually you have or you need a longer telephoto lens. And then for the flowers and the other flora, you might need a macro lens or a lens that has capabilities of focusing really, really close. But remember, these are only general advices for using landscape photography, that you have a wide angle lens, or you need for animals, you need a longer lens. Of course, you can do landscapes with the telephoto and animals with the wide angle. But in general, those are the lenses that you usually use when making images in those situations on those genres. But what is the difference between a wide angle lens and a telephoto lens? Of course, the wide angle lens has a wider field of view and telephoto lens has a a narrow field of view. That's of course the most obvious difference. But there is another difference. It is how they treat with the perspective. With a wide-angle lens, it will make the front, the elements in the front a lot bigger, and then with the telephoto lens, you can compress the perspective. The things that are far away seems to be a lot closer. So that is a very big way of making compositions and what the impression of the photograph will give the viewer. So that's also, it's not only that I want to make an image that's far away, I will choose a telephoto lens, and that's not the thing. And it's not the same thing when people say that you use your feet as your zoom. That's a one way of doing it, getting closer to the subject. But if you have a wide-angle lens, it will make the front bigger and make the things that are far away a lot smaller. So telephoto lenses and wide-angle lenses are totally different things also when it comes to the perspective. And as you can see from these two images of really brand new leaves for this year, and these are taken with different focal length. This is 12 millimeters and this is 40 millimeters. And as you can see with the 40 millimeter, how much closer the back bushes are, or the bushes behind the leaves are, than they are with the wide-angle lens. I stopped down to, I think it was 6.3, just to make the background a bit more sharp so that you can see the difference. But there is a difference. As I said, the perspective is totally different with telephoto lens and a wide-angle lens, and that might be a reason to choose the one over the other. But before we get into the travel photography and the three genres on that, you might want to consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so yet. And those who have, thank you so much. And remember, my channel is all about you getting to be a better photographer. I post 2 videos a week, usually on Tuesdays and on Fridays. But let's go into the three genres of travel photography and the lens choices that you might consider. Okay, as I already mentioned, there is 3 subgenres in travel photography that are most likely the most popular. One is just the snapshot memories, one is street photography style, maybe the classic style, and then you have the cityscapes or landscapes. But I'm talking about cityscapes on this one because landscapes was covered with the nature photography. Okay, let's start with the snapshot memories of your travels. In my opinion then, the kit lens could be the one that is the only lens that you actually need. Those kit lenses that manufacturers make these days are really good for that kind of photography. And usually if you have, let's say, like a pancake version of it, it's really small, you can fit it in a small bag, possibly in your pocket. And that could be the only lens that you actually need. The only thing in that, if you want to get better in photography, is to just try to make images as much as possible, and then of course have your camera with you while you're traveling. But then of course, if you like to make images in the night, when after a nice dinner you walk back to the hotel and want to make some images of the street life or whatever that is, then you might need a faster lens, because usually the kit lenses aren't that fast. Then a wide-angle lens could be your choice. Maybe a fast standard lens could be another option for that kind of photography. So also this comes to the fact that what are the things that you like to make images of. The subject matter is the thing that will decide on this one also, like it always will. And then also, if the classical street photography is your style or your things that you like to make images of, then a fast wide-angle lens or a fast standard lens could be the one that you need or want to have. Which one to get, the wide-angle or the standard? That depends on what kind of images you like, or what is your style. And you can find out that, for example, if you use Lightroom, you can go and check out which one you use most for that kind of images. Do you prefer the Micro Four Thirds 25mm or 17mm or maybe 12mm on your street photography? Go and check out from the Lightroom catalog or some other software that you can see what is your most used focal length in certain kind of images. That will help you to decide. Well, after you've made up your mind about the focal length, then there is the question, do you need a prime lens or a zoom lens? And the difference between a prime lens and a zoom lens is of course that with the zoom lens you have several different focal lengths and angle of views, and a prime is a fixed focal length, and that could be a very deciding thing for you. And then there is another difference, that prime lenses are usually faster than the zoom lenses. So if you like to make a lot of images during the night, you might want to consider a prime lens. But if the fast aperture doesn't mean that much for you, then a zoom lens could be an option also. And then there is also another difference, is the size. Usually zoom lenses are a lot bigger than prime lenses, but not always. If you have, for example, the 14 to 42 millimeter pancake lens, which is a very, very small lens, then of course if you get a fast prime, it's going to be bigger. So also the size is one thing to consider. And before we get into the last question, you probably wonder why I haven't mentioned too many different lenses yet, what you should get. There will be a blog post, and I will put a link into the description of this video to that blog post where there are links and other things that you might want to consider. And those links are, of course, Amazon affiliate links. And if you click them, I get a small commission if you buy something. But remember, you still pay the same price, even though I get a small commission, because this commission is so small. But if you want to buy through those links, that will help me to make this free content twice a week. That will be very much appreciated. But don't be and feel pressured to do so. If you don't want to, no matter what, I will still make these 2 videos a week for free for you to learn about photography. And then the third question, and before we get into that, let's make an example. Let's say that you have decided that you like to make travel images and your style is the classical street photography style. That's the thing that you want to shoot on your trips and your travels. And what are the options that you have? Of course, you have the zoom lens, the 12 to 40 millimeter f2.8 Pro lens, or then you might want the 12 millimeter f2.0, or they could be the 17 millimeters, either the f1.8 or the f1.2 lens. What are the things that you want to consider on those two, or on those different options? Okay, first of all, the Pro grade lenses are weather sealed, so you can shoot images whenever you want. It doesn't matter if it's a bit of a rainy weather, because during rain you might get some interesting images. But then, of course, a light rain with 12 millimeter and the 17 millimeter f1.8, it's not a big problem. If you cover it nicely and put it in your bag and maybe make an image under some kind of a roof or under a bus stop or whatever. So that might not be the case. Then what is? The size might be the M.Zuiko 12 millimeter and the f1.8 17 millimeter lens are quite small, and the Pro lens is a lot bigger. And then the question that you want to ask is the price, of course, because I never recommend anyone to buy something that they cannot afford. Don't break your bank by buying lens just because one of your friends has, or you've seen somebody had it online on a YouTube video, or because I have the lens. Don't buy it because of that. Buy a lens that you can afford and what you actually really need. That will give you the most satisfaction on your photography, because photography is not a race against other people. It's all about you getting to be better at it, and that makes you feel good. That's what makes me feel good when I get better at photography. I try not to compare myself to others. I make the images that I like to make, and that's it. Don't compare yourself too much to others. And of course, as I said, if you can't afford, let's say you want the Pro lens, but you cannot afford it right now, of course you could save up. But then you don't have the lens until you have collected the money, or you have the money. So the 17mm f1.8 gives you the satisfaction right now. So that's also an option. But of course, if you know that you have a trip, let's say like next summer, then you could save up for a year and then buy the lens that you want, the dream lens that you want. But remember, don't break your bank. And remember, there is a collection of links to different kinds of lenses and some explanations where those lenses might be useful in my blog, and there will be a description in this there will be a description in the link of this video. No, there will be a link in the description of this video, so go check out that. And thanks for watching, and bye for now.